if you black, African American, descendant of chattel slavery, getting off the Democratic plantation is important. Now, I've been independent since forever. And I know a lot of people are independent, but when it comes to black, African American, descendant slaves, there's this hard bias towards the Democratic Party. Now, I know why that is. From the civil rights era of the 1960s, things that LBJ did. I get that. I'm aware of that. I'm aware of that history. And nor am I endorsing Republicans. Nor am I hating on Democrats. But this is about blind loyalty to a specific party, being the Democratic Party. And being blind to the Democratic Party and toeing the party line most of the time since 1970 something has not benefited black people, because politics is about reciprocity. Hey, you want something, you need someone else, you need to tag along with someone else saying, hey, help me out with this, I'll make sure y'all get that. It's supposed to be a two-way street. It's supposed to be advocation on both sides, or the multiple sides, if you will, of a party, being the Democratic Party in this case. The problem is that ain't happening. Point blank, period. There's plenty of other candidates out there, independent, third party, etc. Now you say, hey, how can an independent or a third party be a viable option? Well, number one, it's a viable option if you're black, you want to address specific black issues. And what I mainly talk about is black wealth. Closing that wealth gap, making affirmative action the way it's supposed to be it for college or workplace, be it for African American descendant slaves. White women can have their own action, immigrants can have their own action, etc. It's no hate, but it's about the redress for the tragedies of slavery, Jim Crow, mass incarceration, being blocked out of programs during the Reconstruction era. Now, when I talk about third party and independent voting, the thing is, only 60% of the American population votes, that's registered to vote. Now, they don't vote for whatever reason. They don't want to wait in a long line. They don't care. They don't feel motivated or what have you. Or they don't have the means to take off, or child care services, can't get a ride, etc. So I told you, there's 40% of the American population that's not being addressed. When you add that in with your black issues, and you can cater something for them as well, and other people, no one's going to be excluded. Other people that need certain things, yeah, you can work with them saying, hey, if y'all need this as a woman, if y'all need this as some of the LGBTQ plus community, if you need something as an immigrant because you're not being treated fairly, that's cool. But also, I'm coming with my black issue. That has to be addressed. Because yes, people can always say, usually from the Democrats, saying, hey, they use scare tactics and saying, hey, vote for us because Republicans going to put you in chains, or they're not going to allow you to vote, etc. And there is definitely merit in not allowing you to vote. Now, I don't know about putting you in chains or what have you. That seems very extreme. We fought a civil war about that. And considering that the Democrats won the popular vote last presidential election, when they pick up a gun and help, or they're going to sit there and let the black people just go away, be put in chains, saying, you know what, you didn't vote for us, the Republicans won, you got to deal with it. No, you're going to step up to the plate, right? You're going to pick up a gun with me. Hillary Clinton, you're going to pick up a gun. Joe Biden, you're going to pick up a gun and help me get out these chains, right? And also, I forgot, even in the small election, be it for the governors and other elections in your states, neighborhoods, even less than 60% come out probably, actually about 50% at most. So that tells you everything you need to know. There's definitely a possibility for another party to step in. There's room for other ideology in the political landscape. And why I'm talking about the Democratic plantation is because, hey, what are we getting? What are black people, African American descendants of slaves, getting out of the Democrats? Because they're voting, we're voting, getting everybody else's issue addressed. Illegal immigrants, their issues are being addressed. And you can even, and that's a whole nother topic, because you're not even, it's not even a citizen right there. LGBTQ plus issues being addressed. Certain women's issues, other people being left out, healthcare issues, etc. being addressed. What about black wealth? When you have a situation where black wealth is approaching zero, black median wealth is approaching zero by 2053, that's the problem. That needs to be handled immediately. Immediately. That's still a death sentence as well. That just all that does, it increases poverty and crime. That wealth actually matters. You can say, talk about income or what have you, or anything else along those lines, but that has nothing to do with wealth, generational wealth you have for yourself in terms of retirement, in terms of your family, in terms of your children, etc. The redress obviously includes reparations, estimated to be 14 trillion, which is actually less than universal health care, which is 38 trillion, proposed by Bernie Sanders. Also, you want to do affirmative action being implemented the right way. Now, if anybody else got any issues, they can take from the larger, I guess in this case, be the white male pie. If you're female, white female, another immigrant, anything else. We had a separate thing set aside for African American descendants of slaves being United States. I know people from the islands, South America, they would call them a slavery too, but that's between them and their specific oppressor in their homeland. We're talking about the United States right here. That's just what it is. And you also want to address educational issues in terms of funding, because hey, they get funny with that paperwork. Something about, hey, the paperwork didn't get in time, so they don't have enough funding for the schools, so they can put back in art programs, so they can put back technical programs for people that actually, people that don't want to go to college. That makes perfect sense. But these same communities have money, these same cities have money for sanctuary cities. But guess what? That costs millions of dollars. That could have been used towards the education of African Americans. But you have something for people that aren't citizens, being illegal immigrants, and you're funding that. But yet, you can't fund the schools that a lot of African Americans go to, especially in those predominantly African American neighborhoods. But then, on the other hand, you have money for juvenile prisons, juvenile detention centers. But yet, you got Democrats crying when illegal immigrants, when their families are separated, and you got kids chilling out at Walmart. I know they're separated, but they at Walmart. They're not locked up. They're not locked up in a traditional manner, like the young black kids be up in juvie. And those and black families get separated too, because guess what? They gotta do what they gotta do to make money, because due to oppression and racism. So if they're doing something illegal, they get separated from their parents. But what are the tears for that? Where's the justice for that? But you say when illegal immigrants come over, they can break the law. Oh no, it doesn't count. And what part of the game is that? Come on now. That's a slap in the face. A slap in the face. So yeah, the Democratic plantation is not for me. You gotta get off that plantation. Independent thinker. Yes, I'm not saying don't vote for a Democrat. I'm not saying don't vote for anybody. But I'm saying demand something. Make sure they represent your interests. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? You don't have to have blind loyalty. Wealth matters. Having wealth to pass down for your kids' college, to have a down payment on their house. Because yes, you can do a good job raising your kids until, 18, what have you. But the job is not complete until you can pay for that higher education if they want it, traditional 4-year, and have a down payment for their homes. So if you got 3 kids, you gotta have for every single one of them. That's just what it is. Because it's not only about raising someone with certain set of values, responsibility, being a responsible person, human being, individual, etc. They also have to have an economic base, which is very, very important, which is going to allow them to do for their children as well, or do for whoever. But you have to have that base. That's important, and that's lacking with African Americans. The wealth gap, $1,700 is the median wealth of Black Americans, African Americans, descendants of slaves. Hundreds some odd thousand for whites. No one sees the problem with that? Because that's not self-inflicted. That's government inflicted. That's crooked government inflictions. That has to be addressed. Because all it leads is to more and more problems. And I'm not forgetting about mass incarceration and criminal justice reform. I get that. You could even have it in a position where you say, hey, let them sell these drugs in their neighborhoods. But how much is you really going to get? Is that really going to flip the wealth into a line with the white population? Even the Latino population, their wealth is going to hit zero by 2073. And that's a different set of circumstances, a different set of challenges that they deal with. So this blind loyalty, especially if you're Black, it's no good. About critical thinking, you can get other candidates in. You can push it. We got social media out there. We got the internet. You can go door to door in certain cases. There's people that are not voting. You can address that. You don't have to be narrow-minded. You don't have to buy into every little hype. You don't have to buy into this social construct of you can only vote for 2 parties. No. We've seen independents and third parties win local elections, state elections. So we've seen that done. It can also happen at the national level. People just have to start thinking for themselves. And when you're Black, you have to make sure your demands are met as well. That doesn't mean you exclude other people. You can still go along with everything else. Someone has to meet your demands. The wealth has to be addressed. Wealth is a serious issue. A slow death, if you will. And I don't know how y'all can just sit back and accept that without bringing the fight. You got illegal immigrants bringing the fight that don't even belong here, talking about we citizens, we want this, this, and that, and the third. But you Black, an American, actual citizen of this country, descendant of chattel slavery, and you're like, you throw your hands up? You can't throw your hands up. You gotta demand something. If you don't go out, you don't go loud. You don't go out being heard. And staying off the Democratic plantation definitely applies to local politics. When you're talking about the district attorney and you're talking about your judges, that goes a long way in criminal justice as well. Make sure you have a DA sympathetic to certain things. It doesn't want to ruin a young person's life because they made a mistake hustling trying to get some money. Because it goes that way for other people. You've seen it. We've seen cases. Be it drug use, certain crimes, rapes, killing people, drug uses, etc. We've seen it as it pertains to white people with a white DA, the white judge, and say, hey, we don't want to ruin this young person's life. Okay. Well, find someone that wants to go in the Black community and has the same kind of sentiment as well. That's not too hard to ask. You can get something together locally to vote for independent, third party, or even a major party. Make sure they have your issues at heart. Make sure they're just not treating they're not just treating a symptom. They're dealing with the actual root problem. Do you really need more juvenile detention centers? Or maybe you need to address the reason why these young folks are committing these crimes. That poverty, why don't you address that? I'm not talking about income. I'm not talking about income. That's a complete different thing. Wealth is what matters. Wealth is what gives you opportunity. Wealth is what gets you ownership. That reminds me, small business loans are important. Under Obama, small business loans got down to about 2-3%. It was 6% under George W. Bush. That's important, because that's how you take control. That's how you keep the playing field level, especially when it comes to jobs and hiring. Because when you have double unemployment most any time, and unemployment could be even higher because they're not properly counting the people that are in prison, you have to be able to have some kind of insulation where you can say, hey, I work for myself in this manner, work with someone else that understands my struggle. That doesn't necessarily have to be African American, but you expect someone who's African American to understand, struggle a little bit, and give you a fair shake at getting a job. So you're not always relying on an outsider or be it the government. It gives you something. It can even help you get your wages up to a degree. And yes, I'm not throwing income away. I understand there's a wage gap as well. When you're African American descendant slave, that needs to be addressed too. And I think the Democrats are sort of addressing it, but they really focused on essentially white women and talking about at 79 cents on the dollar, but it's even lower for black women, of course, and still lower for other minority men, with the exception of Asians. So there's a problem there. We have an income gap issue. I don't want to say it's a gender one, because that's not the truth. It's compared to the white man and some Asians. So they may, fit in that model minority role, better or worse, what have you. Whatever. But it's about comparison to the people that have been in this country in general, closing up that wage gap. But it always gonna come back to wealth for me. That matters. That's something that can be addressed. That's something that can be on the agenda. That's something that needs to be on the agenda. It's an emergency out here. It's real out here. A lot of people don't care. They talking about just hustling, trying to get their money, trying to pay some bills. But you have to step back and look at what you're doing. Examine your politics. Examine the money. Examine how other communities move. Otherwise, you're gonna be in a bad situation. Very, very bad situation, and that's no lie. Remember, it's not something that's self-induced. These same things, the early European immigrants that came to the United States went through these same issues until they were allowed to become white. So not necessarily anything wrong with you, and no, I'm not slapping personal responsibility to the side, because obviously that matters. Obviously most people engage in personal responsibility. But when your back's against the wall, wealth-wise, certain crazy things are going to go down. That needs to be addressed. That's why I'm not on the Democratic plantation. Things have to be looked at intersectionally. You have to see how illegal immigration hurts African Americans. You can talk all this nonsense, talking about doing jobs people don't want. No. You got illegal immigrants in many fields, also using educational resources that aren't being necessarily used for black students. So now it's being diluted. So there's a lot of things you got to take into account. It doesn't make them necessarily bad people for that, but things need to be done about that. You can't just have a open border like that. the citizenship still means something, especially when you left the African Americans, descendant slaves, out there with no ownership. They weren't given the tools to break those chains and become owners. We can say, hey, you know what? We're gonna make sure we hire our citizens first, so you're not at the mercy of these other people. They just want to hire illegal immigrants, and you left out there because you don't have no ownership. We don't have no control of anything. So you always have to think about it. It's not called being selfish. It's called advocating for yourself. Because it's funny how when black people got issue with that, all of a sudden become selfish. You want to talk all this rising tide lifts all boats nonsense. No, you have to address specific issues. Some things, be like a Social Security, universal health care. Yes, that can rise. It's a social program for everybody, welfare, etc. We're still not addressing the very, very specific issues that affect African Americans, and Democrats aren't doing a good job with that. Not saying they're all bad or that they're all good. So you have to be critical with that. Ask for something. Tell them they need to get on that. Tell them about that wealth gap. Tell them, hey, ask them, what are you going to do to address the racial wealth gap? Small business loans, increasing that number. Reparations, increase that number. Putting in housing protection so you're not dealing with reverse redlining. That was caught up in the spending bill that had some Democrats supporting that. Be it a Tim Kaine, there was also vice presidential candidate right there with Hillary Clinton. Just so you know, the woman is supposed to be, and the vice president is supposed to have black people's interests at heart, with the reverse redlining, because there's always something. You gotta check that. You gotta comb through them facts. Make sure you don't want to hurt people like that. I'm off that Democratic plantation. Don't be loyal to that Democratic plantation. Step aside. See what's what. Demand something from your politicians. Not just the Democrats. Demand from whoever comes knocking at your door. They ain't knocking at your door. Go see them. That's all that needs to be said.